Hello, and welcome to We Live for Saturday, your favorite college football podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike, but due to what we're going to call an unfortunate wedding snafu, John is not here this evening. But luckily, we have the man, the myth, the legend, your favorite Big Ten, my favorite Ted. It's Big Ten Ted.
Oh, that's high pressure right there. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, John couldn't make it here today. I know he wanted to shout "Sky You Ted" at the top of his lungs here today, but here we are. But yeah, it should be good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to chatting today, no doubt.
Oh, I'm so pumped about this. So this is our Big Ten conference preview. John and I had a crazy summer, so we did not get as many of our preview episodes as we normally do. So we are kind of going to hit everybody we haven't hit. So to the teams we did full previews on so far, that's who gets it. Next year, you'll all get full previews. I apologize. Life got in the way this time. But we will be doing that. And also we are going to do one more. We will do a Gopher preview because we have to with a special guest. Daniel House is coming on the show. So that's going to happen then. But right now, I've got Big Ten Ted, so I'm excited to talk all the Big Ten ball. Ted, tell everybody where they can find you. I'm sure they mostly know, but if they don't, where can they get your stuff? And also, I believe you just put out your predictions for the year. I didn't have a chance to listen yet because you just put it out. But
so, on Twitter, it's at Big Ten Ted, and then also on YouTube, podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, anywhere there. So I'm dropping my stuff on all of those social handles. So very easy to find.
Absolutely. Well, I am very excited to listen to your predictions, and I won't ask you. You save your predictions for your show, but if you want to give us the thoughts you have, we've got Big Ten Ted. We're going to get his thoughts on everybody. So let's just kick it right off, jump right into this preview. And I think it's only fair. A lot of people aren't doing this when they discuss the Big Ten in the aggregate. But I got to start with the defending national champs.
Let's do it. Yes.
The Indiana Hoosiers. They were 16-0. They won the national title. I know everybody wants to forget it like it didn't happen, especially those south of the Mason-Dixon line. But they did it, and they're back. And I will say the latest news with Indiana is due to the latest court ruling. As of now, Stephen Daly and Kellen Wyatt are ineligible at this exact moment. So they could get a TRO from a local judge potentially. That's something that could happen. But this is where I'm kind of at with the Hoosiers, Ted. If they repeat as national champions, I won't be surprised. And I'm going to do a quick victory lap just because not just this summer, not after they won the national title, not even not even when they were in that run, not after they beat Oregon, any of those things. Before last season, I said Curt Cignetti was the best coach in college football on this show. I put him number 1 in my Big Ten coaching rankings.
I do remember that. That sounds familiar. That sounds familiar. Yeah.
And my justification was that the man and everyone knocks people at lower levels of football. But I'll tell you, Ted, as someone, as you know, who appreciates football at all levels, there are a lot of smart guys who coach small-time college football. A lot of really smart, really experienced, sharp, hardworking dudes. Curt Cignetti's never had a losing season. And then after he did what he did, going 11-2, I was like, what are we talking about? This is Indiana. Indiana, a school that's won 35% of its games from 2009 to 2023 before he got there. So Cignetti, it's his world. We're all just living in it. I'm willing to believe the man can walk on water if he tells us he can.
Yeah, it's borderline preposterous how some people view Indiana this season. I was watching a clip on social media, and there was a guy on First Take on ESPN. I'm not sure if he ever got an invite back, because what he said was basically like, okay, if you go out and get a top transfer portal quarterback, you return the type of production that Indiana is returning. You've got the best coach in the country. You're coming off of an undefeated national champion, and you're wearing a number on the side of your helmet like Alabama does. What ranking are they at the beginning of the year? And everybody on the panel says number 1. I think we're still living in the world, despite a 16-0 national championship. We're still living in this like Indiana basketball Bob Knight still kind of world in some segments of the college sports landscape right now. And it's just like back-to-back would be one of the least surprising things out there. I truly believe it. If you look at this entire roster, all right, and I remember saying this, maybe it was February or sometime in the winter. I'm just like, everybody thought, well, look at D'Angelo Pons was leaving. What's Aiden Fisher, Elijah Surratt, some of these JMU guys. Well, now Kurt Cignetti's not going to have his JMU guys. I think he's still got a couple maybe on the roster, but right. You look up and down this thing, you've got, I think it was five all Big Ten players from last season that are coming back. We're not even factoring in preseason lists or guys that could become that as well. It's just, this is a loaded roster, and I think there's some people nationally that aren't giving it the credit they deserve, and we could be turning around and it could be early November and they might be undefeated with wins over Ohio State, maybe a win over Michigan because they got them in back-to-back weeks, and they may be, well, what happened? I'm like, well, you didn't do your research. That's what happened. Yeah. They're right there. Hoover is a guy, I can't remember the stat. I think it was Josh Hoover ran like the second most RPOs last year, and I think number 1 was Indiana and their offense. So he's a guy that's very familiar, that fits really well into their system. A name that people should know, Kobe Martin, their running back. I saw him. We've seen him a couple of times in some blowouts, and I'm like, that guy is a freight train. That guy is a downhill runner if I ever saw one. Their backfield's going to be fine, despite all the talent and production that they lose there. So this is a stacked group, and defense, I think they got the best front 7, definitely in the conference, probably in the entire country.
The Big Ten Network called it the best D line they've seen in the last 20 years.
Yeah, that's not surprising. You get Tyreek Tucker coming back. One of my favorite players is Mario Landino. A little bit of on the smaller size from an interior defensive lineman, but he's really quick in there. And then we'll see what happens with Stephen Daly, like you talked about, and Kellen Wyatt. But they went to the portal hard as far as the edge rushers is concerned. So
that's how we knew it wasn't going to be a flash in the pan.
Right, exactly.
That's how we knew with Indiana. When Indiana went to the portal and spent the way they spent, I was like, oh my goodness, they've got cash. Like,
they do.
Like I didn't know they had. And when they went to East Lansing and stole Nick Marsh, I was like, that's when I was on notice, because that was kind of early in the portal.
I'm really curious what the inside baseball talk, so to speak, is in Bloomington in the athletic department. If they're just like, we don't really care about basketball anymore. We're great at football, because that's always been pinstripes and warm-ups and stuff, and it's a traditional assembly hall is a beautiful basketball arena. But now it's just kind of like, oh yeah, we're kind of good at football now, so we're going to spend all of our money there. So that would be an interesting fact to know exactly how they think. And I'm like, well, it certainly looks that football has certainly become the main priority, no question, at Indiana.
Yeah, will there be more Michigan or more Ohio State? That's the question. Like, as far as basketball, I mean, specifically about basketball, like how, because Ohio State, it's not that they're not trying to win at basketball, but they could try harder.
Sure. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think they've been, basketball-wise, they've kind of been like upper middle of the road as far as the conference is concerned the last handful of years. So it's kind of just like, we'll see. Maybe it's a little bit more like Ohio State, but I'm sure they would love to be Michigan. That's been proven you can be really good in both. Yeah. It doesn't mean you're limited to one or the other. But right now, I mean, football is just, they're just on another level. And then they go out and get the 5-star wide receiver, Monshon Sales, out of the Indianapolis area. That was sometime in the spring, I think, maybe the summer. And it's just like, this is not stopping. It is not stopping anytime soon. And they're going to be right there. They got a tougher schedule this year. There's going to be some tough games. There's going to be some big marquee games that they're going to be in. I'm not sure if they're going to go undefeated this year, but they're not doing worse than 10-2. I'll say that.
Well, yeah, I'm going to use that to segue to my key game for Indiana, but I'm just going to say the thing that sticks out at me is that the only question mark I have, because we know they have the coaching, we know they have the talent, we know they have the experience, we know they have all that stuff. Is Josh Hoover going to throw the ball to the other team in big games or not? That's it. That's it. Is he going to give the ball away? Because if he doesn't, then good luck beating the Hoosiers. And with 3 guys back on the O-line, including Carter Smith, I mean, it's going to be like he's going to have time to throw is what I'm saying.
It's the best. To me, it's the best O-line. Definitely in the conference. Yeah. Maybe the country. I know Iowa's probably going to be up there yet again. Smith is probably the best offensive lineman overall. He's the reigning Big Ten offensive lineman of the year.
Yeah.
They got Brunner from Wisconsin. They went to the portal and got some guys. So that's just going to be at the trenches. I can't think. And we'll see how Oregon's offensive line plugs in with some of their departures. But man, I cannot think of a team that's going to be better than them at the line of scrimmage. That's just more loaded than they are, and we know that's where ball games are won. So it's just they're there yet again. They're going to be in that championship discussion. They can certainly go back to back.
Yeah, and that's why for me, their key game is Ohio State.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It just has to be. Because, I know there's at Michigan and there's some other games on that schedule. There's another team that would like to have a word. But I just think that Ohio State rematch, we had Will Howard putting out the cigarette. And then we have Indiana come back and win the Big Ten title. Now it's the rubber match. I mean, I don't clear your schedules. Because that's going to be a game that I absolutely cannot, is going to be really excited to watch. I always say I can't wait, but I've stopped saying that, Ted, because that implies that I want to go through the early football faster.
That's true.
It's not that I can't wait. Yeah. I can wait, but I will be excited. Wait. I'll be jacked when we get there. That's what.
And the wait is in the buildup. That's what's great. You were talking about kind of your summer plans getting in the way of stuff before, and we're in the same camp. We don't wish away summer. I know a lot of people online in right after 4th of July, right after the big commitment season and recruiting, and after the holiday weekend, people are like, I need football right now. I'm like, dude, go touch some grass, get outside. It'll be there waiting for you. Enjoy the summer because we only get so many summers. And maybe when you live in the upper Midwest like we do, you appreciate the summer because you know what you got on the back end in the winter a little bit. So maybe some of our Big Ten friends in Southern California might not be able to relate to that, but so it's always going to be there. And that's the beauty of all of this is kind of the buildup. But as far as that game is concerned, there is outside of Ohio State, Michigan, there is no more prototypical big noon game than undefeated Ohio State against undefeated Indiana. I mean, that's just got Gus, Joel, Jenny, 11 a.m. or what? I think they're Eastern time over in Bloomington, 12 Eastern. That's just got big noon written all over it, and it should be certainly one of the biggest matchups of the year.
So the question is, what's the next big Gus nickname? We had Maserati Marv. So, what's he going to call Chris Henry? I don't know, but I bet it's going to be something. I bet he's going to find something to call him if he scores a touchdown.
I'm so over Gus. I hope this isn't. It should not be a hot take. It should not be a hot take, but maybe because I work in the industry, I kind of think about these things more. Gus Johnson is the most overrated announcer on television. And I don't think it's particularly
I like when Ted gets passionate. Go on.
Because it's almost like I was talking to some friends who are also announcers about this recently. It's kind of like he's almost become he almost got like a mockery of what he used to be. It's like he can call the big moments, right? Indiana, Penn State, catching the back of the end zone. And it's just like he just tries to scream at the absolute top of his lungs. But you get him in a blowout where it's 28-7, and he just absolutely checks out. He mentally checks out. He is not even there. It's almost like he doesn't even care, and it's look, it is not difficult, or sorry, it is difficult to broadcast a blowout, right? That's you got to be able to, but the good ones are able to do it. They are able to do it. It's just, like you need to be able to kind of go through the highs and the lows, but for him, it's all highs. And it's like, how high can I scream? What crazy nickname? It's very gimmicky to me. That's kind of the way I see it. It never used to be that way fully with Gus Johnson. I would probably say like post-COVID, it's really gotten to that point. And now it just seems like he just doesn't have the whole package like he used to. And he's been doing it for a long time. I get it. Yeah. I understand it. But that's just my opinion. People put him on this pedestal now, and I'm like, I don't see it. I don't see it.
No, I'm with you. And you know what? I know a lot of Buckeye fans, including friend of the pod, Phil, who say that Gus Johnson is not it, that they've had too much exposure to him, and they've seen him in the games that, like you said, aren't the big games, and he's not invested the same way. Yeah, no, totally.
If it's not Ohio State, Michigan, you can throw Indiana. It's not one of those matchups. Like if it's, I can't even think of a matchup last year that would be thrown into that conversation. He just wouldn't be at that level. You get Gus Johnson calling Minnesota, Wisconsin, he won't care. He wouldn't care. Like that's the fact.
Whereas you give that to Tim Brando, and it's the best moment of his life. And I don't even like Tim Brando. Like I'm not even a big Tim Brando guy. But like when he gets the axe, he does get excited.
He's had some good moments in that series. I'll give him some credit. He's kind of one that's kind of towards the back half of his career gotten a little gimmicky and a little weird as well, but
little hokey,
yeah,
yeah, right on. All right, let's move on. And we were just talking about this game. Let's talk about the Buckeyes.
Mm-hmm.
Ted, there's so many things you could say about Ohio State, but like to put it in a single sentence, they stack class after class after class of top end talent, and those guys, those blue chippers, end up in the NFL. Wash, rinse, repeat. And they do it better than anybody in the country, which is why they never lose more than 2 regular season games in a year. Haven't done it since the interim year with Fickle, in what was that, 2011? Nobody, Alabama has a bad year here or there even. Georgia has a bad year here or there. Like LSU has plenty of bad years. Michigan has bad years. Penn State has bad years. USC has bad decades. Oregon has not bad. I guess Oregon doesn't really have bad years anymore.
They've got like one bad year.
Yeah, but they used to.
20. Yeah.
And Ohio State just the beat rolls on in Columbus. And now they've got, another NFL coordinator, essentially come to do the job in Arthur Smith. And I don't know, man. It's hard. I'm not going to announce. I'm not going to pick. I will pick before the end of the show, but I'm not going to pick this second. It's hard not to pick the Buckeyes when you think of the track record, when you think of Ryan Day, when you look at Jeremiah Smith, who's arguably the best player in college football, Julian Sayin, who is the quietest Ohio State quarterback to dominate in a while. It's like we don't talk about Julian Sayin that much. We talk about Dante Moore and Jaden Mayava, and like especially but it's like Julian Sayin is almost flying under the radar because everyone's like, well, his wide receivers are so good. It's like, well, he's still got to throw the ball to him.
Yeah.
And now Chris Henry. And the thing I'm excited about as a football nerd, Ted, I'm thinking, okay, so you've got 6'4", 6'5" on the outside. Is Ohio State going to be terrifying running the ball now? Because Ryan Day said it's his best offensive line he's had. And now you have giant receivers, and like, if you ever played ball, I don't know, man. When I played corner, those tall receivers, it's a lot to get around them to get to the play.
It is difficult, and then when you combine it with so much some of their other skill sets, right? Being able to get open and stuff, and their speed and all that, it makes it even more challenging. Yeah, it's and I think with Arthur Smith coming in, I kind of did this. I kind of dove into when I was doing my preview with him. He is everywhere he goes, they get better at running the ball. He has really invested, and he's great with his run scheme. So I think like Bo Jackson, who as a true freshman last year was a 1,000-yard rusher, I think this is going to be one of the more balanced Ohio State teams, Ohio State offenses that we've seen in a really long time. So now you take, like, they're always going to be good throwing the ball. The way they recruit the quarterback position and the wide receiver position, that's never really going to be a question. But last year, I mean, they had a 1,000-yard rusher, so I guess you can't say it wasn't a good rushing offense, but it just maybe didn't have the balance maybe that they were looking for. But now I think you're going to have a little bit more.
It's Ohio State. It
Right,
wasn't elite. It wasn't the best it wasn't the best running attack in college football, or even, close to it, despite the fact that they have Ohio State talent. And, Bo Jackson's interesting because I have 2 Ohio State question marks, and one of them is Bo Jackson. It's not that I don't think he's talented, and it's not that I don't think he's great, and he was only a frosh last year. I just, like you said, you want to see more pop. You want to see more highlight reel, kind of plays out of him. But again, he's a young player still, so that could be coming down the pike easily.
Yeah, I think he'll get there. I think the run game is going to be better this year. I think the jury's still out on the O-line. I mean, look how they fared against Indiana and Miami towards the end of the year. They did not look good,
pushed around,
especially against Miami. And you have a lot of those guys. The Luke Montgomerys, the Hinsman, I think he's from like Wisconsin somewhere, kind of up here. And then Saraveld's the other one, people really like Ian Moore, who's like a left tackle. I think he's new, but he's a little bit younger, a first-time starter. So
yeah, he's just a sophomore, I think.
I'm going to believe it when I see it, I guess, as far as the offensive line is concerned, because look at their schedule. They're playing some good pass rushes. They're playing some very good defensive lines this year. So how is that all going to work, especially as far as them throwing the football against a pass rush? I mean, is this group going to be much? But they have to improve. I said this in my preview. I guess I'll just finish with this. Their offensive line has to be better to win a national championship. If it peaked, because a lot of these guys are experienced. They're fourth-year guys. They're fifth-year guys. Right. If it has peaked, they're not going to win the national title. Plain and simple, because you're going to be playing defensive lines, and who knows, they're going to see a pretty good one in week 2 against Texas. So we're going to find out a lot, I think, early in the year. If they don't get better up front, despite all of the weapons that they have, they get into these big games against good teams, especially good defensive lines, they're going to struggle like they did against Miami and Indiana last year.
No, I think you're exactly right. And so that's the thing. Is Ryan Day know what he's talking about? Is it wishful thinking? Is it, what is it? Because he seems Ryan Day does seem just more confident about the offensive line than he's been in past years. And obviously, the other question with Ohio State is just to put a bow on it. They replaced a lot of great guys on defense.
Ooh, yeah.
So it's just like, how long does it take those guys to get up to speed? But I don't know, man. Matt Patricia's made me a believer. So I have a hard time believing they're going to fall off. And I also think it's easier to gel on defense than it is on offense. I think you can do it faster in a season.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll talk about like Iowa later. I kind of have the same opinion about Iowa's defense as I do Ohio State's. Buckeyes were first in the country in a lot of categories last year. Okay. They might drop from 1st to 11th or 10th. Iowa might drop from 6th to 17th in the country. Like, this is, those are 2 programs with great defensive cultures. And Ohio State, they have a ton of talent. It's just like, when are they going to get up, to the speed like we've seen? But here's the thing. With Reese and Styles both going, I think, in the top 10 of the draft last year, and Downs, they had lost a ton of talent.
And Downs was super natural. He wasn't
know.
A normal. You know who he was like? He was like Antoine Winfield, where it's like he knew what the play was before it happened.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a big defense is a big question mark for me. I kind of put in my time on this, and I'm like, okay, they've got talented players. They've got a lot of stars on their defense as far as like high school recruiting rankings is concerned. But I'm like, we got to see it all come together. Last year, I kind of think we knew what the experience was going to be like coming back. Now Matt Patricia has to do it kind of with new guys.
Yeah, but again, he's made me a believer. So I'm gonna say the key game's at Texas. That's what it is for me. Because you can always say, you could say Michigan, you could say Indiana, you could say Oregon, but if Ohio State beats rolls into Austin and beats Arch Manning and the best Longhorns team in 20 years plus, that's going to send a message that's going to just reverberate through college football. And it's going to have Paul Feinbaum fleeing the country or threatening to again. Like, I really think it's that big a game. And I think everyone expects Texas to win. They have the home field advantage. They have the experience advantage. This is what they've been building to. Sark is Sark. And it's, I don't know. I'm sure he'll have an array of screen passes that are all just one tougher than the next. But I kind of think it's going to be also sort of a shootout, maybe.
Yeah.
Like you said, that Ohio State defense, guys getting up to speed. And I just don't think anyone's stopping this Buckeye offense.
Both quarterbacks are going to be much better at this point this year than they were last year in this game because they were brand new at that point a year ago. And I think both defenses are down a decent amount of players. So I think, you look at Cam Coleman and I forgot one of their other receivers' name. Wingo? No. Wingo is on the other side. Ryan Wingo, I think, is a good one. You got him on that one side. You got Smith, Innes, and Henry. I think we're going to see a lot of points. We're going to see a lot of points in this one. But I think the difference when I was picking this game, I did pick Ohio State to go on the road and get the victory here. I'm just I just think Ohio State has better weapons on the outside than Texas does. They have Jeremiah Smith and Texas doesn't. I think that's what it really came down to for me, for them to be able to kind of get the victory is I just think they got just a little bit more firepower on offense than Texas does.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think if Texas wins, it's going to be a game where Arch has a bunch of big plays on 3rd and long where he either throws it downfield or escapes the pocket and runs for the first down or whatever. And that he's going to keep some drives going and keep some – yeah. Anyway, we could talk all day about that. But let's move right along to go to Eugene, talk about the Oregon Ducks. So Oregon brought back a parade of NFL quality, experienced talent led by QB Dante Moore, who could have probably gone number 2 in the draft, but decided he wanted another year to improve and another shot at a national championship. And I love that. I love that for college football, that guys come back now who would have gone pro almost assuredly before for one more bite at the apple. Absolutely love that. And, Dan Lanning's getting chesty, saying Evan Stewart's had the best offseason he's ever had, saying DeCorian Moore isn't a freshman anymore and all that, kind of stuff. It's kind of – the D-line's outrageous. I mean, their portal haul was totally insane. We don't need to talk specifically about all the players they stole, but they're really good players, high level ability.
I was told one specific team is going to be better with said player now at Oregon. That's just what I heard, though. That's just what.
Yes. Well, okay. I'm going to take 10 seconds and address that because you did provoke me in a positive way here, Ted. Here's what I'll say. If you're moneyballing a football team, do you want to spend 7 figures at safety?
I personally would not. That is not how I would do it. Yeah.
So for a certain team in maroon and gold, it made more financial sense to spend that money on, say, the defensive line and other spots.
Yes.
And wide receiver. Where they kind of needed some pop. So yes, but the fingers crossed we're better. We'll see. It's the thing about Oregon is just that there's no end. They've started to recruit kind of like Ohio State. Only maybe more aggressive in the portal than the Buckeyes are. You could say.
Yeah, I mean their roster building strategy I think is as good as anybody out there. They've certainly taken a step up as far as the recruiting approach. I mean they're it's so interesting to me wide receiver position, how both of these teams are recruiting over the last handful of years. Ohio State is wide receiver right? You just look at the names dating back to all the way back to somebody like Chris Carter. But then you look at Oregon, like that's like our bit running back. They have not really had a ton of success at wide receiver, but they're going out and they're winning some recruiting battles and at least going toe to toe with Ohio State as far as the wide receiver position. So it just goes to show you the investment. We knew in this era of college football that the financial piece was involved. We probably had a good idea. Even though Lanning wasn't the head coach at that specific time when it happened, they were still about a year away from that happening. We're probably, okay, yeah, Oregon's probably going to be a big-time player in this era of college football, and it's no surprise. They have somebody in Dan Lanning that has a very clear vision of what he wanted. He kind of comes down. He was like a GA or something at Alabama on that staff. And then, of course, the defensive coordinator at Georgia, where they just had dudes on top of dudes up front on that defensive line. And he's kind of building this Oregon defense specifically in that image with like guys like Amari Washington and Bear Alexander. It's crazy. Bear started his college career as a freshman under Dan Lanning at Georgia in 2021. Right. So Dan
quite a journey.
As a guy that always saw the talent in Bear when it maybe didn't work out at Georgia, certainly didn't work out at USC. And now, look, especially after the Penn State game, the second half of the year, he really burst onto the scene as well. That defensive line is, it's stacked. It's ultra experienced.
It's crazy.
It's the best. It's the best in the country right there. And we know how important that is. For them. And I would probably say their best pass rusher isn't even in their first four. They got a guy last year was a freshman in Nasir Wyatt that's ultra explosive and so fast coming off the edge. He only played, played like 40 snaps last year, but it was mostly at the end of the year. He made a big play in the Peach Bowl against Indiana. So, he could maybe be that third down specialist for them. The secondary is loaded. We didn't mention his name, but you got Coy Parrish kind of coming in there at safety.
Yes.
It's interesting how Coy and Dylan Thieneman are so similar, right? They're like All-American as freshmen. They take a little bit of a dip, kind of their sophomore season, and then they both transfer to Oregon their junior year. For Dylan, he ended up being a first-round draft pick, and he really got better. We'll see what happens with Coy. I think he can certainly be in that conversation back there. So, they're loaded on the defensive side of the ball. You go to offense. You mentioned Evan Stewart. That's a key cog in the machine, I think, for me. If he is as advertised, you combine him with a healthy Decorian Moore, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on Jeremiah McClellan, who's the leading returning receiver there, and he made some acrobatic catches towards the end of the year last year. It's just they are stacked in every.
And it's still a young guy, McClellan.
As long as this group stays healthy, which has been a little bit of a problem. Okay, you look at the running back position specifically going into the semifinals last year. They had to beg Jay Harris to come out of the transfer portal just to play, just to have enough guys in there. There was the 2023 season when the Bucky Irving was kind of banged up at the end of the year and he couldn't go in the Pac-12 title game. 2024. You had, I think, Tez Johnson went down in the Rose Bowl. Was Jordan James went down in the Rose? They just need, if they're healthy, if they're as close to full strength as one can be at the end of the year, they're going to be in a position. Last thing I'll say about them, Dante Moore needs to play better in the bigger games. Like that. That's going to be. We might not know anything about Oregon or Dante Moore until we get to January. Like that. That's just how it is. I know he's going to be playing in some big games during the regular season, but we've seen that. Like we've seen Dante Moore went on the road to Penn State, made some big plays. They won that game. Say what you want about that game and how Penn State ended up, but at the time that was a top 5 type of team.
Penn State was competitive when they were focused. They just weren't focused most of the time.
Going on the road to Iowa, he made some big time throws on that last drive to eventually lead them to a victory. So there is this narrative, especially when you look at the Indy. Oh, Dante Moore doesn't really play well in some bigger games against the better defenses. But kind of those two other examples I mentioned, not national championship teams, of course, but he's still able to kind of make some big time plays down the stretch. But he's got to do it, and it just kind of it's a great microcosm for Oregon and their history, isn't it? Right? They got to do it. in January. We've seen it so many times, dating back to, if you remember, Dennis Dixon in 07 goes down with an injury. They were the favorite in a crazy year. They probably would have won the title that year. 2010, Dyer was down. Was he not down against Auburn? They lose by 3. 2014, Mariota losing like they've been in that situation, knocking on the door so many times. It feels
but they didn't
like
have the depth up front then.
No, they don't.
They didn't have the horses in the trenches like they have now.
They do, but they gotta get it done. It feels like, I know I don't subscribe to the thought, well, if it's not now, then it's when. It's like, well, have you been paying attention to what Oregon has been recruiting? They're going to be fine in the years coming up. That's not the problem. But it's just, now's the big time. I feel like this is as stacked of a team as you're maybe going to have at the very least in a few years in Eugene. So I'm curious to see if they can get it done.
Until a certain magnate departs this mortal coil, I think Oregon's going to be just fine for the foreseeable future. And even after that, I'm sure they'll be fine as well.
I think they'll be fine.
But that's a lock as long as he's around. It's a lock that Oregon's going to continue to be in position to win national titles if, as you said, they can execute when the lights are on in the biggest games. And that's why my question mark for Oregon is Dan Lanning's big game coaching prowess.
Yeah.
Because we've seen them look confused in some big games. I mean, I think of, we think about the Indiana games and sort of how they played out, but that Rose Bowl is hard to get out of my mind. And that was just that game was over before it started.
What's interesting is Indiana put up more points, and you look at the score and you might think Indiana was the more of the lopsided, but it was turnovers. Remember Dante, they just kept on turning it over and turning it over and turning it over. The Ohio State Rose Bowl was just 3 and out after 3 and out. They just seemed just completely overmatched, and just, you mentioned the confused is a great word, and it just like that Rose Bowl is a lot worse to me than the matchup against Indiana. But there's no harm in losing.
D'Angelo Pons is a superhuman person.
There's no harm in losing to those teams, but losing in the way you did, I think it just kind of leaves a bitter taste. You lose both those games by less than 17 points. Hey, those were the eventual national champions. Those are teams that just went on this big historical run, and it just wasn't your turn at that point. But that's just not the feel I get. I think, but now maybe it's their turn. Maybe it's their turn to kind of go through this thing, and we'll see what happens. But they got to get it done. It's going to be interesting. And I think they have a schedule that's favorable, where they're going to go maybe 12-0, 11-1, maybe 10-2. I don't know if I necessarily see that, but I don't think we're going to find out much about, because we've seen them beat Ohio State during the regular season. We've seen them have good performances during the regular year. We might not know anything until January. That's when we're really going to find out what this group is made out of.
I am gonna, it's funny. The last thing I'm gonna say is key game I've got for them. This is flying in the face of everything you just said, but you could easily be right. I've got at USC, and I just think after that, like you said, as long as they beat USC, it's gonna be till November before they play Ohio State and Michigan.
It is.
So. And USC, I think this is going to be Lincoln Riley's best team in Southern California. I think Jaden Mayava's the truth. They've upgraded in the trenches as well. They have brought in that number 1 class. I don't know how many of those guys will be able to contribute in a meaningful way, but I'm sure some of them will. And it's like, and Lincoln Riley needs it. He needs a signature victory. He needs to plant a flag and make the playoff and if he's going to remain there long term. I mean, you've got national podcasts. I was listening to College Football Inquirer with Stephen Godfrey and Andy Staples, and they're trying to ship that after Lincoln Riley fails, because they're sure he's going to do it, he's gonna run away and go to Texas Tech, where he doesn't have to play anybody who's got the resources he has. Which I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening at all. But that's the talk. So I think Lincoln Riley needs it. And I think that game's going to be I think that game's going to be better than we think. And if it's not, if Oregon dispatches with USC by 3 scores or something, then yeah, I'm going to believe it's their year.
We'll maybe talk more about that when we talk about USC, because I've got some different thoughts on that. But yeah, I mean, that's USC Super Bowl right early in the year.
Yes.
I mean, Oregon, this rivalry has leaned heavy Oregon in recent years as far as wins and losses. And this is it's a battle for West Coast supremacy. And that's going to be, I really liked it last year when these two teams played at the end of the year. I kind of wish we would have had it this year, but early in the year, that's going to be, one of the biggest matchups, man. If USC can do it, that shifts these narratives big time. And I think that's going to be an awesome game. I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, that's Oregon's just got to keep doing what they've been doing in this series.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go right there and talk about USC.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden Mayava, man, a couple of years ago, John and I were wrong. We were dead wrong. In his first year starting, we're like, I don't know. I don't see it. Makes a lot of mistakes. Doesn't see the field that well. And then he got in the film room and he got on the practice field. And when he came back last year, he was the real deal. And now he's coming back for yet another year. And maybe if he upsets Oregon in week 4, he's going to win the Heisman. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if he'll do it. I'm not predicting it. But if he does that, the O-line is really good. So, yeah, he's got to replace those wide receivers, and that's a little scary. But it's USC, and I feel like next to Ohio State, who reloads that wide receiver better than USC?
I really like USC. I'm going to say it this year. I think they have a really good to a great team this year. I think that this team can get to the college football playoff. I really do. Are there some question marks? Of course, there are some question marks on this team. But, Lincoln Riley got a rude awakening to the Big Ten in 2024. I think that's abundantly clear. And he kind of had some difficulties adjusting to it. Last year, got a lot better. Right? They're getting better at the lines of scrimmage. They're getting better playing on the road as well. I know they had that loss to Illinois, but that's kind of been a big knock. But I think if you really look at last year and how they played in some of these situations, whether it was tough games like they had against Iowa, that was at home, or whether it was, some of these games away from Southern California, they're certainly progressing, I think, as a program. And it shouldn't be ultra surprising that Lincoln Riley says, yep, that's my guy, and he elevates the way he does. It's just like, you can say what you want about Lincoln Riley. This guy gets the most out of his quarterbacks. That's the cold hard truth. That's just what happens. And I think that's what we're getting with Jaden Mayava right now. I had him as my second best quarterback in the conference behind Dante Moore. I think he's that good. I think he's going to be real. I think he's still got a little bit more room to grow. Now, not having Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane is going to be a big question, right? Was it easy for Mayava because those guys were open all the time? Or did Mayava help out these guys become the type of draft picks that they were? We're going to find that out. I think Tanook Hines, who's probably going to be their top wide receiver this year, is a big candidate for a breakout wide receiver. He had some big performances later in the year. You look at that bowl game performance, even though they lost, I think he had over 100 yards in that game. So he's someone that I would probably identify as he can come out and have a big time impact. I think there's some freshmen in here that could step up as like a number 3, number 4, a depth type of role. I'll never worry about that. Like you said, you never worry about that in a Lincoln Riley system. And I think like this USC team is going to be as close to those Oklahoma teams that we've seen in a long time for Lincoln Riley, because even though you look at Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts and some of these guys, you look at quarterbacks throwing the ball, when they were able to balance it out with a really good run game at Oklahoma, that's when the engine was really humming. And when you've got Wayman Jordan, King Miller, which is one of the best duos back there as far as the running back position, now you're going to have balance. And we'll see what this – I think the veteran offensive line is going to be good. They had a big injury at center, but it looks like they're going to pivot and they're going to still be okay up front with a veteran group. But, yeah, I mean, if they run the ball really well this season and then Jaden Mayava just does his thing over the top. It's going to be one of the best offenses in the country. I have no doubts about that. And then you look to the defensive side, that D-line's top 5 in the Big Ten. Like that,
I talk about how go on.
It is. I mean, you look at all these guys, and you get a lot of guys coming back. I know he got hurt for the first 3 or 4 games, but if he's healthy, Jakeem Stewart is going to be one of the best defensive linemen in America. I truly believe that.
Abasiri at D tackle.
Let's go, Prior Lake's own Jade Abasiri. Fun fact about Jade Abasiri: I was in attendance. I was there covering his last high school game that he ever played. By the way, state quarterfinal against Centennial. But anyway, but yeah, he's. I remember watching him as a senior in high school, and he was like, for a guy that was getting recruited at the level that he was kind of a little, maybe a little bit smaller, I guess, even though he looked huge on the Minnesota high school football field. But he's really bulked up. They've done a really good job with him, and he's really evolved into a great player. So I mean, there's a lot of depth. There's size up front. There's depth. There's speed, there's power, and when you have that on the defense, you have that on the defensive line, it can be scary. And then you got Gary Patterson calling the defense.
Yes,
there's some things to be excited about defensively for USC. I think they're going to be pretty good.
No, I'm with you. It's interesting. My only question mark, because I do like USC so much, is essentially, is Lincoln Riley up to it in the big? Like, I'm kind of with like where I am with Dan Lanning. I'm like, is Lincoln Riley up to it in the big games, or is he going to get coached around by guys that are, that are a little, so that's the question I have. And Lincoln Riley, like you said, in 2024, he flat out didn't run the ball enough. And last year they ran the ball more. So I still think, like, in those big games, is he willing to stick with the run game, or does he get gun shy and start throwing a bunch of go routes because he's nervous because he's down by 10 or something? So I think he'll be fine, and I think this is going to be, I think he's gonna. It kills me to say this because I don't like USC as a program, but I do think they're going to make a real playoff run, and I mean, you look at this schedule, right? And it's Oregon, at Washington, at Penn State, at Wisconsin, Ohio State, at Indiana. I mean, they got to, win most of those games? Okay. Like, I think they're going to win most of those games. If they go 10-2, they're going to get in. It's USC.
Give or take, they got to split the big games, essentially, is what they have to do. I know they've really, if you include Washington, that's really 5 big games. But yeah, and this is a team that's played really well at the Coliseum. And they're going to have some big time environments, I think, at the Coliseum. I think it's going to, I know there's been it maybe doesn't fill. I mean, it is a 90,000 seat stadium after all, so there's maybe some things we need to put into perspective as far as, well, it doesn't look like you're packing your stadium and all that in a town where there's a lot going on, of course, in Los Angeles. But yeah, I think they're going to, I'm really, spoiler alert, I think they're making the playoff. I think they're winning 10 games. That's how I feel about USC. When you have the defensive line they do, when you have the quarterback, experienced offensive line, I see it. I think I see it all kind of coming together this year for Lincoln Riley. He's just got to win these big games. Got to find a way. And they're not easy this season. So, but I think he's going to be there, and I think we're going to be having a different conversation maybe about Lincoln Riley at the end of the year. Now they get into the playoff. I'm not super high on them making a run at that point, but hey,
I think it's enough for him to make the playoff.
Getting to the dance, and then like USC with this class, man, has so much future potential, to get back to being a consistent playoff team year after year. And when they joined the conference back in 2024. The Big Ten wanted them. It was like, okay, we're getting USC. Let's see mid-2000s USC. Let's see that. So we don't want to see what we've been seeing.
Right.
Let's kind of get, and that because it increases the value of some of these big time matchups. It's a big time brand. You want to see them kind of step up to the occasion and have those big time matchups where people are going to watch. We know those are things that drive the sport right now. And it looks like USC is certainly getting to that point. And it's exciting. It's exciting to kind of see a big brand kind of rise to that type of level again.
Yeah. I've got their key game is Oregon because, like I said, I just think
Yep.
that Oregon USC game is going to set the tone, kind of like I think
Yep.
Ohio State Texas is going to set the tone. All right, let's go to Ann Arbor. Talk about the Wolverines. How, we got Kyle Whittingham rides into town. How good can Savion Hyder and co and whoever else is getting, Jordan Marshall, whatever, and Bryce Underwood look behind an offensive line that returns 4 starters? And the thing about Michigan, it's like no matter whatever else happens, they're always tough in the trenches. Offensive line, defensive line, you never see a big drop off there. And that's why even when Sharon Moore was going off the rails, they won 9 games? So
9 games. Yeah.
It's now they have now they have a coach who's a little more of a head coach and going to take it probably a little more seriously as he should.
Yeah.
And my only question with the whole team, because I do like Michigan a lot. I think they're going to be their vintage in so many ways, but I also think there's bust potential for them as a season for what they would consider bust potential, because I don't know how good Bryce Underwood is yet. And I don't know how good their receivers are either, outside of one guy that I feel like they can probably count on.
I think you're having a lot of the same. You're having a lot of the same stuff. I think a lot of the same questions. I think that you had even like Jim Harbaugh's national championship team was not great at wide receiver. They figured it out. They had Colston Loveland on that team, and they had a dynamite run game and all of that stuff. But yeah, like this, they have, they got some good portal guys. It's just like, but it all depends on Bryce Underwood and how good that he's going to be this season. I honestly don't know. That's a huge question mark for me. Some of the stuff coming out of spring was and then, eventually fall camp, but especially the spring, I remember it just didn't seem like he was progressed a ton. And you got a new offensive coordinator. You've got some new pieces around you. So I think early in the year, there might be a little bit of growing pains. I think they're going to get better. I think they're going to be really good towards the back half of the season. It's just the front half, I think they're susceptible to an upset. I will say that. I can see the smile on Mike's face right now. So you'll have to go watch my predictions episode. I'll just kind of put that
Big Ten Ted show and watch.
I'll just kind of put that out there without spoiling too much. But that's just kind of the way I feel right now. Jordan Marshall is one guy that I think is going to burst onto the scene and be a household name by the end of the year. And then the true freshman Savion Hyder, that's a dynamite combination in the backfield. Like, they're going to be able to run the crap out of the ball. They got a veteran O-line returning. These are all things that are typical Michigan. And that's why Kyle Whittingham is the right hire, right? Yeah. Because he's so much, it's not like a complete copy and paste of like a Harbaugh style, but it's very similar. It's line of scrimmage football.
Close.
It's don't beat yourself. It's discipline. That's why it makes sense for Michigan to hire him. So I'm really excited about what they have. And then defensively, I think they're going to be pretty good as well. We'll just see kind of how all of these things mesh together. Of course, they got that game against Oklahoma week 2 in Ann Arbor, which should kind of give us a good gauge of where things are at. But Bryce, I think it really comes down to Bryce. Bryce could kind of swing your season, maybe a win or two here on the good side for them, and maybe 1 or 2 losses back the other way, depending on how good that he plays this year.
Yeah, no, I'm just like you said, just outside Andrew Marsh, I just really have a lot of question marks at that wide receiver position. But yeah, I don't like the Oklahoma matchup. I don't like going against a Brent Venables defense in week 2. And also those Oklahoma wide receivers are kind of freaky and long. And John Mateer's got a year of experience to get kind of adjusted, and he's healthy now. And I don't think that game's going to necessarily go great for Michigan, but I'm with you. I think they're going to get better and better as the season goes along and they adjust to the Whittingham system. My question is, because I don't know if he's willing to do it, will they run Bryce as much as they should? Because with that offensive line, with those running backs, with his athleticism, they should be running QB power. They should be running read option. They should be doing some of that stuff and making stretching defenses that way so that they can hit them over the top with play action. But is Bryce Underwood, who was the number 1 recruit in his class, willing to be a battering ram?
Yeah. Like, that's a big question. I agree with a lot of what you're saying, that, hey, let's keep the defense on their heels. Let's try to be a little bit more unpredictable. But it's like, well, Bryce Underwood's the number 1 quarterback in the country. He's supposed to be able to go back there and sling it, to these type of guys, but don't force something. I guess would be my recommendation. Not that they'll listen or anything, but that I think would be, like, try to create as many favorable matchups as you can, because you have that, especially when you have such the great backs that you do in guys like Hyder and Marshall. I mean, that you hand it. That pull game can get you 20, 25 yards going back the other way. So, so we'll see if that indeed does happen. But yeah, that's certainly a weapon that I think Michigan can implement, but we'll see where it's at. And with Bryce, it's like, I'll just believe it when I see it. I like a lot of what Michigan has, but he's kind of it's weird because, like, Bryce is a guy that I could see, like, well, I could pick Michigan to go to the playoff because of Bryce Underwood. I could also pick Michigan to go 8-4, 7-5 because of Bryce Underwood. So there's just such a wide range of possibilities.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you about Michigan. I've got my key game for them, Iowa, because I don't think they're going to beat Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So if they lose to Iowa, then you're 2-2. And you got to go play for the jug against what's going to be a rabid Minnesota crowd, especially after the way that I went to a birthday party, Ted, after the 2024 game. And it's all anybody wanted to talk about was how bad we got hosed on that onside kick and how we were going to finally win and get the jug back for the first time since 2014 or whatever. And so I think Michigan better absolutely beat Iowa. They better make sure they do that.
Yeah, that was one that that was. I did end up picking Michigan to beat Iowa, but I'm like, I could see it. It makes a lot of sense if Iowa. Now, if that game were at Kinnick, I might have pulled the trigger. I might have pulled the trigger on an Iowa victory, for sure. But maybe we'll give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt in Ann Arbor. Iowa defensively, just in the way that Phil Parker kind of structures thing, he can give a quarterback like Bryce Underwood a lot of problems. And, you could see Iowa just mucking it up and winning 17-13. Like, that's not out of the realm of possibility. Like, if they play good enough, you muck it up and they cover. I think that they'll have good enough defensive backs to keep Michigan's wide receivers at bay, and then you just kind of do what you do, and you just have a better day than them running the ball. You could see it. You could certainly see it happening. And then at that point, losses. You got 2 losses
turnover
already.
Or 2. Field.
That's just what they do, and we'll talk about them, I'm sure, later. But that's just that's just kind of the early in the season. I think you gotta try to get to your full potential as quickly as possible. But there are some difficult matchups early in the season that could maybe cost Michigan a spot in the playoff when all is said and done.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you there. You know what's weird about the Harbaugh and now. I mean, I guess just the Michigan consistent troubles at wide receiver. Lloyd Carr had a fistful of great wide receivers at all times. At all times. Lloyd Carr had guys on the bench playing 3rd or 4th wide receiver who could have started anywhere else in the Big Ten. So it's weird to me, Ted, that Michigan has become this program that can't develop wide receivers. Because when I was a child, they were terrifying, always.
We got Braylon Edwards. We got
Mario
Steve
Manningham.
Preston, Mario Manningham.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I? I'm sure there's more.
I'm forgetting a bunch of them, but like that's a good start. That was a good start of guys. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Moving right along, let's go to Seattle. Talk about the Huskies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So good returning production on the offensive line. They've obviously got a really talented defensive coordinator in Ryan Walters, who's, maybe found what, at least for the time being, he may be a head coach again someday, but is a guy who can really get the job done. I think can game plan. And, his defenses play aggressive. They get in your face, they press you, they grab you, they clutch, they make it hard. So I think, that's a good thing for as far as that goes. Who's the number one wide receiver though? Because that's my I like. Do we have, and I guess, do we have a wide receiver we believe in that is a legit, who's going to be that guy, and is he ready?
I think Desmond
Denzel
Roebuck.
Boston was fantastic.
Yeah, they were. They had some good guys last year. I think Desmond Roebuck is ready to step up into a bigger role this year. A really young player. Last year, I think he had something like 400 or 500 yards. I had these stats memorized at one point when I was preparing for these previews. But yeah, I think he's in that role. Beyond him, I think you have some questions. That's, I think, the big questions, because, man, like, they were two guys that they could have retained away from, I think, really being a more confident on offense. Raiden Vines-Bright was a young receiver that I think had them like 200 or 300 yards, but man, he flashed, and you could have seen him really stepping up into a bigger role. He transferred to Arizona State, and then Adam Muhammad, the running back, went to Cal, and it's like,
he was good.
He was good.
He was tough.
And now it doesn't sound like Jordan Washington is going to be, ready to go for this season. So they're lacking depth at wide receiver and running back. So what does that do? It puts a lot more pressure on Damon Williams. And that's kind of what this feels like for me. It's like if Demond, is not just the superstar, the Superman that puts this team on his shoulders, how are they going to be? Like they got running back specifically. Like they got Oregon's fourth string running back last year, and Jaden Lamar, who was came in as a pass blocker, caught some passes out of the backfield, things like that. That's the type of guy that you're getting out of the transfer portal to come in. Yeah, there's some young guys that could maybe pop in there, but no one that I would say, yep, that's a 1,000 yard back right off the bat. No. You maybe could have sold me on that from someone like Adam Muhammad. And it's just like, man, if you had more pass catchers. But maybe there's something kind of lying in the weeds that we don't know about, and maybe someone besides Roebuck is going to really step up this year. But that's, I think, what prevents some people from pushing Washington maybe over the edge into a potential playoff spot. Is just like, there's a lot of pressure on Damon this year, and this is a guy that maybe didn't want to be there in the first place.
Here's my question. Since you brought that up, since Damon Williams did try to leave, that's a real thing that happened. When he's the linchpin of everything, are those guys going to rally around him when things are hard? Or are they going to blame him when things go wrong, and rightfully so, because he tried to leave?
I mean,
and can Jed Fish handle all that personality and make it work? Here's the thing, Ted. I know Jed Fish. In my head, I know Jed Fish is a good head coach. I know he did good things at Arizona. I know he's done good things at Washington. Yep. I know he will continue to have a dynamic offense, and he seems to be fairly good at recruiting and all that kind of stuff, program building. But all I see is the guy who ruined Adam Weber. He broke him. Adam Weber was a perfectly second-team all-conference quarterback, and he broke him. So I don't like Jed Fish. And I don't like this Washington team as much as I should, probably. Yeah. So I do secretly think, I'll tell you, let me just put it like this. My dad and I go to one road game a year. This year we're going to Seattle. You take that how you will. You take that how you will.
Seattle in the Pacific Northwest. You could do a lot worse for road trips. Speaking
absolutely
from experience there. But So I know it's this is a team that's right on the edge there for me. I think the defense is going to be very good this year. You mentioned Ryan Walters. They've got a really good and deep linebacker group. I think the secondary is going to be pretty good. We'll see what happens with the defensive line as well. But I believe in what this defense can be. I think they can be a really good unit this season. And then we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens on the offensive side of the ball. But Washington seems to me it'd be like, they can give teams, the better teams that we've talked about in the conference, some fits, but it just doesn't seem like they have that full, complete type of roster to really get to a 10-2 record to end up making it to the college football playoff. And this is the Washington team. They got to play some good teams this year. But I will say that I think you're going to see some big time environments in Seattle this season, and that's a tough place to play. Yep. Especially when Washington is good, it gets loud and everything. So that's going to be a tough one for some of these teams. I know Indiana goes to Washington the week before rivalry week, and that could be pretty spicy. In my predictions, I had Washington 2 losses at that point in time. So we'll see how it ends up. I see how it all ends up shaking out. But yeah, I think that they're right there, but I just don't know if they're at the level of maybe like a USC, Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, something like that.
Yeah, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid on Washington. Yeah. I could be wrong. And I realize I'm sticking my neck out, but I'm sticking my neck out that I think they're going like 7-5, 8, maybe 8-4. Not that they're bad, but just that I think that they're going to lose close games. That's what I think is going to happen. Yep. My key game for them is at Nebraska on Halloween.
Ooh, that's a big one. Yep.
Because if Washington is this college football playoff contender, then they should roll into Lincoln and handle business.
Yeah.
But if they're not, and if, like you said, all the pressure's on Damon Williams, and, Nebraska can figure out a way to, make it interesting and keep him in the pocket and not let him, scramble a bunch. And that crowd starts to come at you. And I think that's going to be a really key game, I think, in their season. Obviously, they've got some other big ones.
To me, everybody's going to be talking about Indiana versus Ohio State, Oregon versus USC, and Michigan versus whoever. Yeah. This is one of the more just absolutely intriguing games of the year. I mean, first of all, blackout, Halloween, the children of the corn are going to be out there in Lincoln. I'm excited about that atmosphere, first of all, to kind of see what that's all about. And like Matt Rule, Jed Fish, Washington, they're very similar in my eyes. These are both teams that be like they're looking to get a victory over a ranked team. They haven't been able to kind of get over the hump, and it's just like it seems like when these two teams meet up, something's got to give. Somebody's got to win. We have no ties in college football anymore, so that is one of the more just absolutely intriguing matchups, because maybe we'll talk about Nebraska later. Like they need to take a step up. That we need to see something. It's crap or get off the pot time kind of for Matt Rule, and for Washington to be like, okay, this is the year where it feels like we're going to pop. Maybe we can make it to the playoff. Somebody's got to win in that type of game. That is one of the more just intriguing games, I think, on the schedule that nobody's really talking about.
No, I'm totally with you. And we'll move on. My last question. Just can the revamped D-line deliver for Washington? Because like you said, if they're good, and I think they probably will be, then they're going to be in all the games. It's just a matter of if they're going to be able to finish or not.
Right.
All right, moving on. Let's talk about Penn State. I am so intrigued with the Nittany Lions because, you got Matt Campbell comes in. Rocco Becht, I think, is probably the best Penn State quarterback since Trace McSorley, maybe. Like, I think he's a legit, he's a baller. He's not, not a first round draft pick, but a guy who's got moxie and makes plays and has won a lot of games and has a lot of experience and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if they can rush the passer. And that's what's crazy to me about Penn State. Because they have had an assembly line of unbelievable defensive ends over the years.
Yep.
And now I don't know if they do. And it doesn't seem like they do, right?
No.
That just, to me, that makes them vulnerable in a way they haven't been. Because it's those guys would always get to a point where they'd start to turn the corner and you just knew that a fumble or a sack or whatever was coming. You know what I'm saying? Playing against Penn State. And if they don't have that, then beating Penn State is a much different proposition, I think.
Quick question for you. Are you taking Rocco Becht? I know over Drew Aller. Drew is a very difficult career for me to evaluate just because, like,
it's hard.
At his highs, I've seen him be really good. But then you like the injury towards the last, we never got to see the full complete story. And now he's actually doing pretty good in the preseason with the Steelers, which is interesting.
That is crazy.
So, but yeah, I know those are kind of, I was just kind of wondering your thoughts on that. But yeah, like here's what I feel. You mentioned the defensive line, and yeah,
here's
agree.
my thought, Ted. I don't watch the NFL enough to care enough about how guys play in the NFL. I watch the NFL when college football is over. And I need something to tide me over to get that football fix.
Well, Drew always had talent, and it just like,
yes.
But the Penn State, some of the things that they did schematically and how they kind of set him up, it just a lot of stuff never really made a lot of sense in how they approached Drew and his talent. So him going to the NFL and having the success that it's not overly surprising to me, right? With Pittsburgh and having that success. So, but we'll see. But anyway, getting back to Rocco, here's what I'll say about these Iowa State guys and the whole roster, really. So there's a lot of 4th and 5th year guys coming over from Ames, and I'm not 100% sure how much better that they're going to be. Like, I feel like they're all pretty close to their ceiling. That's what I feel. Now, their experience counts for something. I think you certainly got to throw that
be reliable,
into the game.
if nothing.
Right? Yeah. That's totally accurate. But the thing is, like, this was an Iowa State program. It's not like it were Texas Tech. It's not like they were at the top of the Big 12 every single year. Like this was a team that would lose a couple of conference games every year. And now you take, for the most part, that team. I know you got guys like Donko and Cousins on the O-line, Rojas, who I really like at linebacker. You got these other Penn State guys that are sprinkled in there. But for the majority, you're going to have a lot of that Iowa State culture in year number 1. Now you take that team and you shift it over to the Big Ten. How does Iowa State do in the Big Ten the last couple of years? 7-5, 8-4, maybe somewhere in that region, right? Maybe 6-6 one of the years, somewhere in there.
Depends on the draw, I suppose.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I feel about Penn State. I feel like these guys are close to their ceiling. I'm not sure how much they're going to take a dramatic upturn and upswing in terms of production. Right. So that's just kind of how I feel about Matt Campbell in Penn State this year. And I think there's going to be some games on the schedule where he's going to kind of run into, this is a little bit higher level of ball. And I'm not sure people are talking playoff with Penn State. They're talking 10-2. I don't know. It's just, it's hard for me to see. I understand the schedule, but it's a little bit hard for me to see it. I still don't think that they're ultra dynamic at wide receiver, despite the 2 guys that were brought in from Iowa State. I mean, these were guys, remember at Iowa State a few years ago, they had a couple of 1,000-yard wide receivers, and they took a step down with the guys that are now coming in. So I don't know how great that they're going to be throwing the ball and how explosive they're going to be down the field. I think they're going to be pretty good running the ball, but I look around at a lot of these guys and I'm like, I don't really see a lot of high-end players. I'm not sure. I think, I had one Penn State player in my first and second team preseason all-conference, and it was Tony Rojas. It was not an Iowa State player. Like, I just don't know if they have the high-end level of talent. I think they're going to get into some wars with the Minnesotas of the world, the Wisconsins of the world. I can't even remember.
At Northwestern, maybe.
Northwestern, that's probably going to be something. Some
Washington,
of these
they got to go to Washington.
Michigan, Washington, USC are all on their schedule, and I think all 3 of those teams are more talented than Penn State. That's just kind of how I view it right now. But we'll see. That was the question that I asked about Campbell. Like, in theory, you're firing James Franklin, which I do agree was the right move, because things were getting pretty toxic there with the fan base and all the stuff. So that was the right move at that point in time.
And his ego got a little.
But in theory, you're firing Franklin to get a guy that's better than Franklin, right? And if you're better than Franklin, you're going 11-1, and Franklin made a run to the Final Four. It's like you're elevating. That was my big question. I had one storyline for every team, and my summer storyline for Penn State was, can Matt Campbell elevate Penn State? I don't know. That's the answer that I have right now. I'm not sure how much better than he's going to be with James Franklin. We'll see. These are all questions that are going to be answered years down the road. I think he's a good coach, really good coach. I just don't know if he's great, and we'll see how it all shakes out in the Big Ten this year. I don't want to sound like a negative Nelly with Penn State, but I think they could be there. I think like an 8-4, maybe a 9-3 season would be a fairly successful year one for Penn State and be competitive in some of these tougher games. But I don't playoff. I just don't see it. That's just me, though.
No, I don't think they're going to make the playoff. Weirdly, Ted, I don't know if the important game, I don't know if the biggest games Matt Campbell needs to win are on the field this year or like meeting with boosters. Because the guys I know who are close to the Penn State program are saying that some of the boosters are sitting on their hands because they don't like Matt Campbell and they don't want to see him succeed necessarily. I don't know if that's true or not, but like if you don't have alignment, you know how it is. You're not going to win big. You're just
that makes sense to the way the coaching search played out. I think when they got fired, Pat Kraft comes in there. It's like, we're Penn State. We're going to go out there and we're going to get the biggest of the biggest and baddest guy out there. And they swung and missed here. They swung and missed on Kalani Sitake. And then they get down to Matt Campbell. He's their third choice, fourth choice, whatever it ended up being. Now,
third or fourth is generous, Ted. I think they were further down the list based on
so I mean, he's for being that far down the list. That's a pretty good option. I will certainly say
he's
that.
He's a great coach. He's a great coach. Is he a great recruiter? That's my only question.
Yeah, that's going to be that this first class is not looking the best for him right now. So I just don't know. If you want to get to that level, like you were there, hey, we get in a 1-game scenario with Ohio State, we win, we can go 11-1 or whatever. I just don't know if you're getting back to that. That's just the way I see it right now.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I've got their, we'll move on, but I've got their key game. I've got their key game as Wisconsin.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Because if you don't beat Wisconsin, if you don't win right away and get off to a good start in Big Ten play, then you're going to Northwestern and then USC and then Michigan at Michigan. So and Wisconsin is desperate for a good season. They're desperate for momentum. They want it. They can taste it. They can feel it. They're like, we went in the portal. We spent a bunch of money. We can feel the momentum. Like, we got to see it. But you got to see it on the field, to believe in it. So I think that's going to be a war. I do. I think that's going to be one. I think it's going to be in all my September games, I got that one circled.
I do. I get your the logic does make a lot of sense in that. I will say this: in the first half of the season, I think Penn State is going to get upset. I do. I think people have maybe seen my predictions by now. I think it's going to be Northwestern. That's
okay.
I think the Friday night game, opening game at the stadium, and I think Northwestern's a pretty solid team this year. Okay, first of all, let's just kind of get that out of the way. But there's going to be
Griffin Wilde is a problem.
There's going to be a problem. There's going to be a lot of energy in Chicagoland on that particular day, right? It's a Friday night. It's a short week. I just think there's the way I kind of structured it in my predictions was they go to war with Wisconsin, low scoring, physical, back and forth. Badgers defense maybe gives them some problems. They come off of that on a short week playing a Northwestern team that's gained confidence from beating Colorado earlier in the year. And that's when it happens. That's just the way I kind of structured it. And I could see it happening right there with the Wildcats. So that would not be overly surprising, I guess, in my view. But
no, I'm with you there. Ted, let's move on and talk about Iowa. Let's go to Iowa City, even though it's always painful, especially when I went last year. But it's a really good offensive line. It's a Phil Parker defense. And from what I hear coming out of practice, Iowa seems to think they have wide receivers. I don't know if they do or not, but they seem to think they do. And if they do, then I think Iowa's always been an offensive playmaker or two away from making a college football playoff run.
Do you think that they have the quarterback to get them the ball, though? That's the
don't
question.
know. I don't know, man. I have
One-
no idea.
One moment you hear Jeremy Heglinski's going out there throwing 5 touchdowns at the family event or whatever they have
Right.
at Kinnick Stadium.
Yep.
The next moment, BTN rolls into town and they're saying, "Well, he's not very good."
And Jake was apologizing for him on Twitter. He's like, "If you saw my worst practice," and it was like, "Jake, it's okay."
I honestly don't know what to think. The quarterback play is there's a wide range of possibilities because of the quarterback play. I think they do have better wide receivers this year. Some of these transfers that they've gotten in. I think that this is as good of an Iowa wide receiver room we've seen in a long time. And I know
Tim
we're
Lester's
not
done a really good job. Tim Lester's done a good job.
Tim Lester is one of the more underrated coordinators in the entire country.
Kirk Ferentz might have a hard time holding on to him if he has another good year.
Yeah, I'd be very interested. I don't know what Tim Lester's future aspirations are, but if we get to a point with Kirk Ferentz, if he's mulling retirement, I don't know if Phil Parker wants to be a head coach. Could Tim Lester really step into that role and be really good?
I think Iowa fans would riot, man. I think they'd riot, even if his offenses were great. I think they'd look at the Western Michigan track record and say,
"Sure, yeah."
We took a guy who couldn't who couldn't do as well as PJ Fleck. That's what we're gonna do.
I'm sure
I don't think that would play well locally.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. That's just something that's been kind of floating in my mind, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I suppose. But he's done a fantastic job. I think with all of that, I think the NFL experience has certainly helped him kind of put together something that's really worked here at Iowa. And the defense, I know they're losing a lot of pieces, but it's still
Parker.
It's just kind of one of those things. You just kind of look around. Here's what's going to happen. There's guys, especially at linebackers, a position where this has happened as of late. There's guys that have been on this roster for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years that have played at most 50 snaps in a year. They're going to be plugged in at linebacker. They're going to get 100 tackles. At least they're going to be all Big Ten honorable mention. And you've never heard of them in your life if you live outside of the state of Iowa. Like, that's just how it is. Like, their culture is got to be among some of the strongest, because in the era where everybody's portaling out, you got guys that are just waiting their turn. They're barely playing. And then you get in there. Carson Shire recently is a great example of that. He barely played. He gets in there, and now he might have signed with an NFL team as an undrafted free agent. I can't remember exactly what happened there, but man, it's just their culture. It's just what they do. Yeah. I'm really excited to see Iosi Epinesa really play this year at defensive end. Oh my God,
there's a new Epinesa brother. I'm terrified, Ted.
There is. He was a 5-star coming out of high school, and he could be terrifying. So I think they're going to be really good at defensive end. Yeah. I don't know quite what's going to happen in the interior D line, but
they'll be fine. Some guy's a 5th-year senior or something. He's going to be perfectly average and at worst.
One of the first things I thought of when the 5-for-5 rule came in, I'm like, oh man, Iowa's just going to be that much better. Like, because they get guys that come in their 4th year, and like now they're going to have those guys for 2 years. I know. Or whatever. Maybe you'll have someone for 4 years that you can bank, and then you have them for the 5th year, however you want to look at that. Like, that's a team I think that's going to really benefit from 5-for-5.
Yeah, I agree.
But
my question mark with Iowa just strictly comes down to special teams, because they lost the guru.
Ooh, LeVar Woods,
and they lost all their specialists. So will Kirk Ferentz, he's had that edge in the margins for so long. Mm-hmm. Will he still have it? Because that will decide games. If they can keep up that level of elite play on special teams or not, there'll be some game that comes down to, I'm sure.
Yep.
Awesome.
Agreed.
All right. And as far as a game to look at, I mean, I think for Iowa, I'm really curious if they can go on the road to Washington.
Okay.
And make it happen, because Iowa has not always done great on West Coast road trips when you think they should.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They had that weird game against UCLA a couple years ago, and just some other
Friday
stuff.
Night. Yep.
So that's my question there. All right, let's move on. We can go a little faster, because Ted, I know I don't want to keep you all. We can't keep Ted all night. It's so maybe just a quick thought, maybe moving on
Sure.
the last several teams we're doing. Minnesota Golden Gophers. I've been on record. You've been on record. You were gracious enough to have me on your show. Look, I'm not gonna. People have heard me. I think this is the most talented Gopher team since 2019. Drake Lindsey is the best Gopher quarterback since Adam Weber was an underclassman before Jed Fish ruined him. And Darius Taylor, if healthy, is a top tier back in the Big Ten. I'm not going to say what number he is, but he's in the top tier for sure. They've got some better playmakers, I think, at wide receiver. The offensive line is theoretically a little better. The defense should be very good. So does the right side of the offensive line hold up? Can the defensive tackles play ball?
Yeah.
If those things and is Danny Collins up to it or not?
Yeah. When I was putting together my first and second team preseason all conference, I had 5 Gophers. 5. Just fun fact, Nebraska had 0. I just want to put that out there.
I love that. I love that.
I mean, but seriously, they've got high end talent. Like with Lindsey and Taylor. I think I had Johnson on the O-line. Anthony Smith, John Nestor created a lot of turnovers at defensive back last year. Like, I mean,
Maverick Baranowski. Yeah. They got guys that can play.
They've got players. Like, they've got a lot of really good, high-level, talented players. And PJ, and credit to Dinkytown Athletes, they've done a really good job retaining these guys and keeping them at Minnesota. So that definitely needs a shout-out as well. Like, I mean, how can you not look at this team and think like, man, this could be a team that could pop. This is a team that could really surprise this season. Their schedule isn't the most friendly. I will say that right off the bat. So maybe that kind of prevents you from getting into that really high level type of conversation. But man, I look at Drake Lindsey. I see just, he's a guy that's got all the tools to succeed out there. I look at the receivers this year. I think they're going to be explosive down the field. Noah Jennings specifically, I think provides some of the transfer from Cincinnati, provides that downfield explosive type of threat. We know about Jalen Smith and Javon Tracy, so I think they got weapons to throw the ball to. Defensively, we talk about the defensive line, the edge rushers specifically. I mean, it might be the top group. I mean, there's just dudes on top of dudes on top of dudes. We were at the open practice, the last one they had. TJ Bush is somebody that people might not know, that people are going to know. It's just like in the secondary, I think is really good as well. Like, I think this defense, it's going to be right there. It's just a matter of, can they avoid that PJ Fleck game where it seems like he loses a game, or maybe it's really close in a game that shouldn't be that? Can they avoid that on the schedule? And then can they beat one of these big time teams? I had them beating Michigan straight up. I had them beating Michigan because I talked about early season, maybe the Wolverines, it's going to take a couple of pulls on the lawnmower to maybe get going to where they want to be full strength. And Minnesota, I think has a lot returning. I think, and you mentioned the crowd factor, and that being at Minnesota, I think there's a lot that plays into that. So this is a team that I think has a lot of pieces in place to, I think, be really good.
Yeah, I think so too. I've got the jug game as the key game. That's what I think it's. I'm planting my flag. I do think Minnesota's got a shot to win the jug. If they're going to have a big season, I think they got to find a way to beat Michigan. If you beat Mississippi State and you beat Michigan, you have a good shot going into Iowa. And if you somehow beat Washington too, then the pig game is 2 ranked teams, and that gets real fun.
I have heard national folks, and we all know how we feel about national folks, but I have heard from national folks that be like, whoa, man, watch out. That Mississippi State game, that could be enough. I think they're going to beat them by at least 17 points.
Well, and they just lost a couple guys, Ted, because of the court ruling. Yeah, they lost a couple guys who are coming back. So
I do
they
not.
They got a freshman starting at a left tackle, I think.
That is going to be the game where people are going to be saying whatever, Big Ten versus SEC matchup there on CBS, and it's just, I think Minnesota is going to line up, and I think it's not going to be pretty. That's just the way I see that. They got a talented quarterback. I get that. But, man, the last place that you want to have injuries and inconsistencies is O-line against this D-line. And I think it's going to be a rude awakening. That's the way I perceive this to be. And I think that's going to be a game where you could see Minnesota winning, I don't know, 31-14. It was like, whoa, okay. And maybe people's eyes are going to be opened a little bit more.
I love it. I love it. It's perfect for me, Ted. That's great. All right. Well, Ted, you've been really generous with your time. I won't keep you too much longer, but let's get out of here talking about Wisconsin, huh?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
And the Badgers. I mean, we know the defense is going to be good. We know they've got a couple great linebackers who are just coming in, who were great, who were good last year and are looking to be great this year, who are coming into their own, who look like the high-end playmakers. And I always, man, when I think about Wisconsin and them scaring me, there are two things I think about, Ted. I think about being a little kid and Ron Dane running at me in the corner of the end zone. I was in the corner of the Gopher end zone, him running at me, and I was like, we're never going to win this game. It's not ever going to happen. Not as long as this guy's here.
Yeah.
And I think about Nick Herbig tracking down Bucky Irving from behind.
Yep.
From behind, he caught Bucky Irving.
And
I was like, in the open field. And I was like, that guy looks like he was shot out of a cannon. And I got used to Wisconsin having linebackers like that all the time under Jim Leonard and, and whatnot. It seems like we're back there with Wisconsin, back to having those explosive playmakers at linebacker.
Yep.
Like, what do you think about the Badgers and that and what this defense can do for them?
Oh boy, Mason Post is going to be one of the best Big Ten defenders by the end of the year. I don't think I'm going through red and white glasses too much when I say that. But I let last half of the year when him and Catalano got into the starting lineup, it was different. It started with the Oregon game, and I know it was kind of a monsoon down there, but the first quarter it was not raining yet at that point, and they were pushing back big time on the road in Eugene, and you could see something different. They were just different in the way they kind of flew around the football. They got the couple of ranked wins against Illinois and Washington. It's just different. And they're like, and one thing about Wisconsin, when you talk about the troubles of Fickle, of course, you're going to talk about the quarterback injuries. Another thing is like, well, is the financial piece of it, is the spending. Well, they weren't at the levels of some of these other teams. And now this year they went to the transfer portal. They kind of retooled their entire roster. I think the secondary, some of the additions they got are really good. Marvin Burks at safety, Javon Robinson at corner, just being a couple of them. Like all the reports out of fall camp are be like, well, the defense is flying around and the offense isn't great. Right. So it seems like the defense certainly had the upper hand in a lot of these battles.
But you portaled an offense. It was probably always going to take a while to gel.
Yeah. So, but man, I think that defense, and this is as big as Wisconsin has been on the defensive line in a minute, in a few years. Let's just put it that way. Like they've got legitimate size now at defensive tackle and nose tackle on the interior there. So that's, I think, something that's going to help them. I think the defense is going to be very good. And we know that's Luke Fickell's specialty is the defensive side of the ball. So it really shouldn't, those Cincinnati defenses were really good. So it shouldn't surprise anybody that Wisconsin has kind of gotten to this point as well. But you go to offense, Colton Joseph is exciting. There's no question about that. And there's potential there. You can certainly see it. But I think this is a Wisconsin offense that needs to really put their money where their mouth is as far as kind of getting back to Badger football, and that's the run game. Abu Sama from Iowa State, Darian Dupree, even Brian Jackson from USC. Like there's some depth at the running back position here. I think that there's
Wisconsin hasn't had in recent years
that people should be excited about. To me, the X factor is the O-line. They have some injuries on the right side, which is probably their strength. Kevin Haywood at tackle, Mandel over there at guard. But if they can get those guys healthy and they're playing at a high level, this can be a good group. I like their new O-line coach and Eric Mateos. I think he's worked with Jeff Grimes, their OC, before. So I think there's there's some familiar faces working together, which is exciting. But I think Wisconsin's going to win a lot of games this year by just being Wisconsin. Tough, nasty defense, being physical, running the ball. I don't think you're going to see Wisconsin lighten up any scoreboards. I'll say that. So I think this is as close to Wisconsin, like true Wisconsin, that you've seen maybe since like 2021, which was the year before Paul Chryst got fired. I think they went 8-4 that particular year. So you're going to go back, of course, you could go back to 2019, the year that they won the West. So it's just, it's been a minute. But I think like this, there's so much about Luke Fickell. He's just like, the whole offseason would be like, yeah, screwed up. And I'm doing everything that I can do to correct it this season. Yeah. It starts with alumni coming back into the program, it getting back to that identity of what makes them great, and being able to kind of admit your mistakes and kind of do that sort of thing. I think, it takes a lot to get to that point. So schedule is very manageable this year. We know the talking points at this point in time. I think 8-4 is on the table. I'm not willing to go any further than that. Personally, I'm floating around the 6 to the 8 win range. And I said this before, I think that this year is a bridge for Wisconsin to then bring everybody back next year with a schedule that's also very manageable, right? So I think it's more of a 2-year window than people are thinking of it, maybe more as a 1-year window. So I think this is kind of a building block to get back to that point for 2027.
All right. He is Big Ten Ted, your best source for all Big Ten football news, other than this podcast, which is also good. But Big Ten Ted is fantastic. At Big Ten Ted on YouTube and Twitter. Please go check out, subscribe to his podcast, and check out his 2026 season predictions. I know they're going to be fantastic. We'll be back with a Minnesota preview. And I know as for Nebraska, Illinois, Northwestern, Maryland, Sparty, I'll put together something to release in the next few days to talk about you guys a little bit too. We ran out of time. But thank you so much, Ted. And everyone, we will see you in the next one. And by the way, there's college football this week. Get excited.